Imagine this. You're walking through a forest and suddenly you see something that shouldn't be there. An animal that wasn't supposed to exist in this part of the world. Now imagine thousands of them. Now imagine millions. And now imagine that you, or someone like you, is responsible for bringing them here. Throughout history, humans have made some catastrophic mistakes. We've brought animals to places where they don't belong, and the consequences have been absolutely devastating. We're talking about ecological collapse. We're talking about species going extinct. We're talking about animals that have completely taken over entire regions, and there's virtually nothing we can do to stop them. Today, we're counting down 7 of the worst. These are animals that were introduced to new environments, sometimes deliberately, sometimes by accident, and turned into unstoppable disasters. Some of them will shock you. Some of them will horrify you. And by the time we get to number 1, you'll realize that one person's decision to bring an animal somewhere can literally destroy an entire ecosystem. Let's start with an animal that sounds cute. Too cute to be dangerous, but that's exactly what made it so deadly. 7. Rabbits in Australia. In 1859, a man named Thomas Austin brought 24 rabbits to Australia. 24. He wanted to hunt them. He thought it would be nice to have familiar game animals for sport. He released them on his property in Victoria, and he had no idea what he'd just done. Within 10 years, there were millions of rabbits across Australia. Within 50 years, there were hundreds of millions. The rabbit population exploded across the continent like nothing Australia had ever seen before. Here's why rabbits became such a disaster. Australia's native animals evolved without rabbits. The local predators didn't know how to hunt them efficiently. The plants didn't evolve defenses against rabbit grazing. The rabbits found a paradise with virtually no predators and unlimited food. They bred like rabbits. These animals destroyed farmland. They stripped vegetation that native animals depended on. They outcompeted native species for food and shelter. Entire ecosystems collapsed. The impact was so severe that it reshaped the entire Australian landscape. Imagine looking at your continent 50 years after introducing one species and realizing it's been completely transformed. And the worst part? Australia tried everything to control them. Biological controls, poisons, fences. Nothing worked for very long. The rabbits adapted. The rabbits spread. The rabbits won. Today, there are still hundreds of millions of feral rabbits across Australia, and they're still causing damage, all because one man wanted something familiar to hunt. But rabbits are relatively cute. They're not aggressive. The next animal? It's aggressive, destructive, and it's destroying Texas. 6. Feral hogs in Texas. Feral hogs are a nightmare. They're not the cute farm pigs you might be picturing. These are aggressive, destructive, 300-pound animals with razor-sharp tusks and absolutely zero fear of humans. How did they get to Texas? Some escaped from farms. Some were released intentionally. Over time, the wild hog population exploded, and now Texas is dealing with one of its worst ecological disasters. A single feral hog can destroy acres of land in a matter of weeks. They root through the soil looking for food, tearing up vegetation, destroying crops, and creating massive erosion. They carry diseases that can infect livestock. They're aggressive and dangerous. There have been documented attacks where hogs injured or killed people, but the ecological damage is what's really terrifying. Feral hogs eat native plants, prey on native animals, and disrupt habitats that have existed for thousands of years. They're destroying Texas ecosystems faster than anyone can control. And they're expanding. Every year, they spread to new territories, and every year the problem gets worse. Texas has been trying to control the population for decades. They allow hunting, they use traps, they've tried poisoning, but the hog population keeps growing. Some estimates suggest there are over 2 million feral hogs in Texas, causing hundreds of millions of dollars in damage annually. And it all started because humans either didn't manage their farms carefully or deliberately released animals that they thought would be fine. They were catastrophically wrong. But at least hogs are mammals. At least they're something we understand. The next animal is something completely different. Cane toads in Australia. In the 1930s, Australia had a problem. Sugarcane beetles were destroying the sugarcane crops, and someone had an idea. Introduce cane toads from Central America. Cane toads eat insects. Problem solved, right? Wrong. So incredibly wrong. Cane toads are not just any toad. They're large, they're poisonous, they breed rapidly, and they have virtually no predators in Australia. The native animals didn't evolve with them. When a predator tried to eat a cane toad, it died. Simple as that. The toads didn't just fail to control the beetles, they became their own catastrophe. They multiplied exponentially. They spread across Australia like a living plague. They poisoned snakes, crocodiles, birds, and mammals that had never encountered anything like them. Entire predator populations collapsed because they couldn't adapt to eating a poisonous animal they'd never seen before. But here's what makes cane toads uniquely terrifying. They're incredibly adaptable. They survive in different climates. They breed rapidly. They're spreading southward into new territories year after year. Scientists predict they'll keep spreading as long as there's viable habitat. And the poison they secrete? It's lethal to most animals that touch it. We're talking about an animal that's literally toxic to touch, an animal that's poisoning its way across an entire continent. And there's virtually nothing Australia can do to stop it. Hunting them is difficult. Poisoning them kills other animals. They're too numerous to control. Australia made a mistake in the 1930s, and 90 years later, they're still dealing with the consequences. Tens of millions of cane toads, still spreading, still poisoning, still winning. We're moving into territory now where these animals are not just ecological disasters, they're actively hunting. 4. Lionfish in the Atlantic. Lionfish are beautiful. Look at them. They're absolutely stunning. Colorful fins, graceful movement, almost hypnotic to watch. They're native to the Indo-Pacific, and they're an important part of that ecosystem. But in the Atlantic Ocean, they're an unstoppable predator that shouldn't exist. How did they get there? The leading theory is that they were released from aquariums. Either they escaped or someone released them deliberately. A few lionfish, that's all it took. In the Indo-Pacific, lionfish are kept in check by predators and competition. But in the Atlantic, there's nothing that eats them, nothing that competes with them. They found a new home with unlimited food and no natural enemies. And here's what makes lionfish so dangerous. They're voracious predators. They eat native fish species that have no evolutionary experience with a predator like this. They eat fish larvae. They eat juveniles. They eat anything they can fit in their mouth. And they breed rapidly. In just a few decades, lionfish have spread from the Caribbean throughout the Atlantic. They're decimating native fish populations. They're disrupting fishing industries. They're changing the entire structure of Atlantic ecosystems. The predatory efficiency is staggering. A single lionfish can eat dozens of fish in a single day. And get this, they're venomous. If you touch one, you get stung. The venom won't kill you, but it will cause excruciating pain. So even controlling them is dangerous. Divers and fishermen have been working to cull the population, but for every lionfish they remove, 100 more are thriving elsewhere. Lionfish are proof that something incredibly beautiful can be incredibly destructive when it's in the wrong place at the wrong time. The next one is intelligent, and intelligence makes things so much worse. 3. Crab-eating macaques in Mauritius. Crab-eating macaques are intelligent primates native to Southeast Asia. They're social, they're smart, and they're incredibly adaptable. And in Mauritius, they're a complete disaster. In the 1600s, macaques were brought to Mauritius, an island in the Indian Ocean. They escaped or were released, and the population established itself. And because the island didn't have native primates, there were no predators that could control them. They thrived. Here's the problem. Macaques are intelligent and flexible in their diet. They eat native plants. They eat native birds. They eat eggs. They destroy crops. They're aggressive and fearless around humans. And because they're intelligent, they learn and adapt quickly. Once you try to control one population, they move to another area and repeat. But what makes macaques particularly devastating is that they're outcompeting native species. Mauritius has unique native animals found nowhere else on Earth. Birds, reptiles, plants, all endemic to this island. Macaques have decimated populations of endangered native species. Some species have gone completely extinct. Others are on the brink, and the macaques keep spreading. They're incredibly difficult to control because they're intelligent enough to avoid traps and poison. They're social, so if you kill some, the others adapt. They have a hierarchical structure, which means they're organized. They're like an invading army, methodically taking over the island. Scientists estimate that without intervention, macaques will destroy most of Mauritius's unique native biodiversity within decades. And we can't just remove them all. There are tens of thousands. The ecological damage is already catastrophic, and it's only getting worse. But monkeys are still creatures we understand. The next two are on a completely different scale. 2. Hippos in Colombia. This is one of the wildest stories in ecological disaster history. In the 1980s, a Colombian drug lord named Pablo Escobar wanted exotic animals. He imported them to his private zoo: giraffes, antelopes, and hippos. When Escobar was killed and his zoo was abandoned, the animals had to go somewhere. Most were captured and relocated. But the hippos? There were approximately 140 hippos, and some escaped into the Magdalena River system. And they thrived. Here's why hippos are so catastrophic. They're massive. They weigh up to 4,000 pounds. They're aggressive. They're dangerous, and they have virtually no predators in Colombia. Plus, they breed rapidly. The population that started with maybe a few dozen hippos has grown to hundreds. Some estimates suggest over 500 today. These aren't gentle herbivores. Hippos kill more humans annually in Africa than any other large animal. In Colombia, there have been deaths. But the ecological impact is even worse. Hippos are consuming massive quantities of vegetation. They're disrupting rivers. They're outcompeting native species. They're transforming entire ecosystems. And here's what makes it unsolvable. You can't just shoot hippos. There are too many, spread across too large an area in a country dealing with other issues. Capturing them is incredibly dangerous and expensive. The hippos are adapting. They're spreading. And by the time anyone figures out what to do, there could be thousands. We're looking at a situation where an apex predator that never belonged in South America is now permanently established and impossible to remove, all because one person wanted exotic animals. But as bad as hippos are, nothing compares to the apex predator that's currently taking over Florida. 1. Burmese pythons in Florida. The Burmese python is a massive snake. They can grow up to 16 feet long and weigh over 200 pounds. They're native to Southeast Asia, and they're apex predators. In the 1980s and 90s, they were imported to the United States as exotic pets. Some escaped, some were released, and they found paradise in the Florida Everglades. The Everglades is a unique ecosystem with its own apex predators, alligators and crocodiles. But the python is smarter. The python is a constrictor. It hunts at night when alligators are less active. It's adapted to the Everglades faster than anything else, and the predatory impact has been absolutely catastrophic. Pythons have decimated populations of native mammals in the Everglades. Raccoons, opossums, bobcats, populations have crashed by up to 90% in areas where pythons are established. Some species have essentially disappeared from entire regions. A single python can eat a fully grown deer. Imagine an animal that can consume something that size. Imagine thousands of them spread across a vast ecosystem, each one a perfectly efficient predator. That's what Florida is dealing with. But here's what makes pythons uniquely terrifying. They're efficient hunters that leave few traces. They're difficult to locate. They breed rapidly, and they're adaptive. There's documentation of pythons eating alligators, pythons competing with and defeating the ecosystem's native apex predators. The python population in the Everglades is estimated at tens of thousands, maybe over 100,000. It might be impossible to ever remove them completely. They're here to stay. They're going to reshape the Everglades for generations to come. And all because people wanted exotic pets and didn't properly contain them, or thought releasing them was acceptable. Florida brought in professional hunters. They've removed thousands of pythons, but for every one they remove, 2 more seem to appear. The Everglades is being slowly transformed by a predator that shouldn't be there. The ecological damage might be permanent. The native species are facing extinction, and there's virtually nothing that can stop it. So there you have it, 7 animals that humans either deliberately or accidentally introduced to places where they didn't belong. And every single one has caused catastrophic ecological damage. The crazy part? We knew. Scientists knew that introducing species could be dangerous. People knew that exotic pets could escape. But we did it anyway. We either didn't care or we didn't think about the consequences. And now we're stuck with these animals forever. We can't remove them. We can't remove them. We can try to manage populations, but we can't eliminate them. The damage is done. The ecosystems are changed. Native species are extinct or dying. The lesson is simple. Never introduce an animal to an ecosystem where it doesn't belong. Because if you do, you don't just affect that one animal. You affect everything. You alter the entire balance of an ecosystem that took thousands of years to develop. And you do it in a way that might be impossible to reverse. These stories are cautionary tales. They're examples of what happens when humans don't think long-term. They're proof that one decision made today can have consequences that ripple through generations. If you found this fascinating or terrifying, or both, smash that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which invasive species story shocked you the most. I'll see you in the next one.